Welcome to the Real Mama Pod.
I'm your host, Devin.
And I'm your host, Kendra.
We are real moms.
Sharing real experiences. The things people don't tell you.
Hey, mama, hey.
Hey, mama, hey.
How you doing, friend?
I am doing pretty good. How are you?
You know, it's better than last week. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, you had a long last week, and then the week before was my long week.
Yes.
So I'm glad we are seeing the other side of those 2 weeks.
Yes.
We're off to a better week.
Yes. So if this is your first time listening, I'm your host, Devin.
And I'm your host, Kendra. Welcome to the Real Mama
Pod. Yeah. So we have a lot to unpack here today. Y'all know every week, y'all know I say I'm excited about what we're talking about, but I am. And I can't help that. Y'all know me by now. We've been doing this for 4 years and it is what it is. Okay. But we've never had an episode, like we've talked about Black maternal health, but we never had an episode dedicated to that. So we actually have a guest and an expert because we can talk from our own experiences, but we actually have an expert to help us have this conversation, to provide a safe space for those who are listening and to just give us some expertise in this area, because we all know, like, even as Black women, we can still learn. We can still learn how to advocate and how to be there for one another and really just take up space until this is no longer that has to have a conversation. Like, it's legitimate laws in place to protect us, right? So we have Milan here and we love everything that she stands for. She is with Black Mamas Matter Alliance and they're doing amazing work. When I say I love everything that they do and everything that they stand for, like, you cannot put it into words what they're doing. And so we're so grateful to have you here, Milan. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
And we can't wait to get into Q&A with you.
Yes, thank you both for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, we appreciate you for being here. And I echo everything Devin shared. This is a topic we've been talking about for years. And having you on is a real treat. And I'm sure it will be a lot of great information for a lot of our listeners. So let's dive in to a personal question first. We always ask our mamas about their journey to mamahood. So if you can share yours, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, so my journey to mamahood, I came into mamahood, I would say it was a little bit of intention and a little bit of surprise. So I was a single mother first, and I had my son. He's 14 now, and I feel like, though, at the time I was poised and ready to be a mama. I just wasn't sure what it would look like. I wasn't married. I definitely knew I wanted children. And so, when he came along, it was scary, but it was also like, I was at a point in my life where I was like, okay, I definitely can do this. What's interesting is that I hadn't gotten so deep into maternal health work or Black maternal health work at that time, which I honestly say is kind of a blessing. Because when you do this work and you're in it for so long, you know so much about what could happen. And I can honestly say that didn't really color my experience the first time around. I'm a mama of 3. So the first time around, it was very much just about me feeling like, okay, are you ready to do this? And I had a really strong village in my family. I never felt alone, although I will say I'm very thankful for that experience as a single mom, because it really did build my mama muscle, I feel like. There's certain just experiences that they weren't necessarily ideal, but I wouldn't trade them. Just having to navigate that as a first time mom and being by myself on my own, having family, yes, but that really did bring up certain things that I was like, this could be different. This could be, I really feel like that was a defining moment in why I continue to pursue maternal, child, and adolescent health as a profession. I feel like a lot of us come into this type of advocacy work through lived experience. And I will say some of the things that I went through, that first time around, even though I had a really uneventful labor and delivery, breastfeeding was horrible. I'm now a certified lactation educator. I educate other families and mamas on what that looks like, lactation, what's normal, what's not normal. I did not get that type of support. So there was just a number of things that I think through lived experience has shaped, what I do in my work now. So that was my entry into mamahood. I have now since had 2 other children. I'm married. So I'm a mama of 3, and every time has been different. I've given birth. I gave birth at the height of the pandemic. So that was my last baby, in 2020. We were 2 months into a global pandemic, and that was really scary. Because, we all know there were certain rules and stipulations that hospitals were laying down. And once they start that, who's going to get affected the most. And it's us. So that was a very nerve-wracking experience, and having to do a lot of my care and appointments by myself because my husband was not allowed to come into the hospitals and the doctor's offices for health and safety reasons. Yeah, it's just been, each one has been a journey.
Love that.
Yeah, it's interesting how we find our passions throughout our lived experiences. Like Devin and I started this podcast because of our lived experiences with being moms. And both of us had some trauma with our pregnancies and delivery. So that is essentially what served as the catalyst for this podcast, because no one told us about these things. It's like, oh, it's happening to me, and why have I never heard of this? Like, I have a lot of friends, my mom, I have grandparents, I have aunties and whomever else, and no one has shared this with me. So why do I have to experience it to learn about it? So that's why we created this podcast, so that we can serve as a resource for moms or moms to be, and share whatever information should be shared with that community. So it's interesting how we find our passions through life.
Through life. And I can honestly say, like, I have not met anyone that I've worked with in this work, especially Black women, that don't have some type of lived experience that brought them to the work. I've met no one. Everyone that I have met has some sort of, whether it happened to them or someone they know, they've come to this work through an experience. And I think that the beauty in that is there is passion that's behind what you're doing. And it's not just to collect a check. Or, it's not just a side hobby, just to have something to do. Like there's real intention and mission behind it.
Yeah, for sure. So that brings me to my next question. What led you to this line of work?
Yeah. So when I was in college, like back in the late 1900s, as the children say. That wears me out, because I'm like, oh my God. I was a college student, freshman on campus, and I was in Los Angeles. I was born and raised in Los Angeles at UCLA. And there is an organization, Black Women for Wellness, Los Angeles. And it's so funny because I still work with them to this day. They are a partner of our Black Mamas Matter Alliance. They are our LA partner, one of our LA partners. And I was on campus, and they were there looking for volunteers, which is some of their women's health work that they were doing. And at that time, they were really centering HIV and AIDS and what that looks like for Black women who are living with it, parenting with it. And I went to one of their meetings to serve as a volunteer, and I sat next to this beautiful Black woman who was HIV positive, was parenting. And as an 18-year-old young woman, I was like, wow, I had never shared space with someone who really looked like me. She was slightly older, but looked like me, who was living with what was then considered such a horrible virus. I'm a child of the 80s, grew up in the 90s. So when HIV and AIDS hit, there was a lot of stigma. and then the conversation shifted towards, Black women in a way that was unkind, and the ways that we were contracting the virus. So all of that was my entry into, okay, whatever I do in my life, I am going to be looking out for Black women, Black mamas, and their children. Wow. That was just that moment for me that I was like, I have to do something that always uplifts Black women and the children that they are raising. It's important. So fast forward many, many years. My background is in public health, community health education. I have always had a passion for history, especially Black history. So that was a concentration that I had as an undergrad student. And so I feel like I've merged both of those. I've merged my undergrad history and African American studies into public health. And I was working in LA County in the Department of Public Health and working my way in different jobs and landed in maternal, child, and adolescent health. And that's when I started learning more and more about the Black maternal health disparity and why that was happening. And it was really eye-opening for me because what was impactful was knowing that you can't educate yourself out of this disparity. Mm-hmm. You cannot, you can have 10 degrees to the highest level and you are still at risk because of the systems in this country and racism and the weathering on our bodies and the way that we are not centered or listened to. And that education is not going to keep you from that. Mm-hmm. So, transitioning to Georgia, I was aware of Black Mamas Matter Alliance, and I just reached out to them and I was like, hey, I'm doing this work in LA and I'm going to be living in Georgia and I'm gonna see y'all regardless. Right. And so crazy to get a job like that. But yeah, it was the pandemic, y'all. I was like, y'all are doing great work. And it was, if you remember that time, there was a lot of social unrest during that time. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that period in time was when Black maternal health in this country became the new hot girl. Mm-hmm. We were getting a lot of funding, just because of the social injustices, even George Floyd. There's an interconnection with everything that was happening. Mm-hmm. And how our organization came to be and was funded during that time. And I started working with Black Mamas Matter here in Georgia, and I have not stopped. In 2019, I became a childbirth doula because I wanted to, I feel like you get that pull, there's more I can be doing for my people. Mm-hmm. There's more I can be doing for Black women. And I was like, all right, I'm going to be a doula. And then I had this horrible experience trying to breastfeed. So I was like, how can I help other Black mamas, especially, not experience what I did? Right. So I went on to be a lactation educator, just, always trying to pour in. So that's pretty much my journey, is always just trying to lean in.
Mm-hmm. So much. So much. You've done a lot. Where did you go to school? I'm curious.
I went to UCLA in Los Angeles. Y'all are Deltas, right? Are y'all Deltas? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Pledged at UCLA Pi chapter, and shout out to Deltas. Hey. And so my undergrad experience was there, and then I went to Cal State Long Beach, which is also in California, to get my master's in public health and community health education. Yeah. So I've been in LA pretty much for the first 40 years of my life, until I moved to Georgia. Mm-hmm.
Shout out to the Deltas, changing the world like always.
Yes.
Always. So in your, in answering your last question, you mentioned that Black maternal health became the new hot girl, during the pandemic because of all the awareness that was brought up around it. But there are some people who are still not familiar with what Black maternal health really is. So how would you operationalize Black maternal health to the common listener that's like, I just want a very basic answer of what Black maternal health really is?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked this question because honestly, when you hear the terms Black maternal health, I think what comes to mind for certain people is not necessarily what we're trying to convey. So Black maternal health at its core is really just a human right to thrive and to have the resources and care necessary to thrive before, during, and after pregnancy and throughout your reproductive life course. That is Black maternal health at its core. When we use the term, and usually when others use the term, they are talking about the disparity, and there's a difference there. So the Black maternal health disparity does exist. It's important for us to know that this disparity exists within our country. The disparity is that Black women and Black birthing people are 3 to 4 times more likely to die or have pregnancy-related complications as opposed to their white counterparts, 3 to 4 times more likely across the nation, right? In certain areas of our nation, really close to even where I grew up in the South Bay and South LA portion of LA, that disparity could be 5 to 6 times greater. Certain other cities in our country, usually these are urban, highly populated Black areas, that disparity can jump to 7 to 8 times a greater chance. So there's the disparity, and then there is what we are trying to shape and center, which is the joy in maternal health and Black maternal health, the joy in parenting, the right to our bodily autonomy, the right to access good care, and not have that denied to us because of our station in life or because of our color. That is essentially what Black maternal health is. So when we center, like Black Maternal Health Week, which is coming up in April, when we center that, it is about showing the world globally that there is joy related to us birthing and being pregnant and then raising our children. There's joy in that. And it's also really connected to human rights and what should be our freedoms just given. They're not, but those should be our freedoms. And it's really connected to reproductive justice, which is really the right to have children, the right to not have children, the right to parent those children in safe and sustainable communities. All of that is important. All of that has impact in our Black maternal health, and the right to bodily autonomy. And so we're seeing some really scary times right now. And you mentioned, I had mentioned first, but then you brought up the hot girl, like Black maternal health in those moments of social unrest and injustice. And that was happening because Black women and Black birthing people were on the front lines when these things were happening, and we were really championing our experiences and saying, hey, not only are we dying in childbirth, some of our outcomes are really horrible, but also y'all are killing our children. Like our children aren't even able to grow up and live their full lives because they're being murdered on the streets by those who are supposedly in authority or law. Like that is all tied to, Black maternal health and what we envision as our right to thrive.
Wow, that was a really good answer.
Thank you.
Wow, kind of speechless there. So my next question kind of ties into what you're talking about too, about having autonomy over your body. So I don't know if you've seen, and it might just be the algorithm that we're on at this point, but there are 3 things that happened within this last month that's really stuck out to me when we talk about having autonomy over our bodies. And so there were 2 women who birthing moms, and I think both of them had children before. So this was not like their first rodeo or anything. They did not want a C-section, and they were forced to have a C-section. And the way it happened, the nurse called it in. And for those who are not familiar with the story, I'm going to kind of summarize. The nurse called it in. There was a judge and a panel of people on Zoom. Like, this lady is in labor, active labor, okay?
In the hospital, right?
In the hospital. Both of them were in the hospital. It was 2 different occasions this happened. And they were in the hospital, and the judge ordered them to have a C-section. Mind you, this lady's in a hospital gown, in the bed, very intimate parts, okay? Being exposed there. And they're forcing her to have a C-section against her will. That was 2 different occasions. And then, and I think one of the hospitals were in Florida, if I'm not mistaken, Tallahassee, Florida. And I'm not sure the second one. I think it was in Georgia, but don't quote me. And then the second thing or third thing that had happened, this young lady, mom, I think she was a first-time mom. She had a doula. She had 2 doulas in there with her, and they were advocating on her behalf, but through the mom, through the person that was going through birth. And she was asking questions, what to ask. And they essentially kicked the doulas out and escorted them out with 6 policemen. And so it's just like, what is going on? Like, what's causing this? Like, why don't we have our autonomy over our bodies? Why can't we say what we want without like law enforcement involved? Like, I really thought that was absurd. That really upset me too, just as a person who gave birth. I couldn't imagine having a camera in my face with people I don't even know, never seen in my life, telling me what I need to do.
Yeah.
So walk us through that. Like, what are your thoughts around that? Why is this happening? Do you think we're going to see more of this? Is it a scare tactic? Like, I'm just confused.
No, yeah, it's, I want to say a couple of things first, because you mentioned the algorithm. And so because of the work I do, I feel like my algorithm is like, ooh, like I have to like actively type in cute bunnies to get things that are not, going to really stress me out.
Right.
And so the first thing I want to say is to you both and your audience, be careful of that. Just because we are Black women and we are advocates and we seek knowledge, because I'm never going to tell anyone not to seek out knowledge and be aware of what's happening. We do have to be mindful of filtering for ourselves and our own well-being, because there is this thing called weathering, and we're weathered whether we like it or not. And the weathering is that our bodies are experiencing a physical negative reaction to the things that are happening to us. Even when we see certain things online, like I won't look at videos of police brutality anymore. I think I cut that out at probably the George Floyd. I never watched the George Floyd video all the way through. So I will say that. Now, to walk you through, so yes, these things are happening. The first thing you mentioned about, so when a woman is in labor, we all know that is the most vulnerable time. And for that to happen in that manner was deeply concerning. To me, it's criminal. I will say that situation is less common than the other situation you mentioned about the doulas, which is more common. But even the less common things, when they happen, so you mentioned 2, it happened, so that we got to pay attention. And we have to we got to stay woke about it. And it's one of the things that it's like, these things will happen and be uncommon until they're common. And the scary thing about it is it was allowed to happen when it should not have been allowed to happen. You should always have the right to refusal. And in one of the cases, the mama just wanted to try a vaginal birth. She just wanted to try. They didn't even allow her to try. And that is a part of your bodily autonomy and your reproductive justice rights. Like, you get to say what happens to your body, and you have a right to refusal, and you have a right to information. And so on the flip side of that, my personal opinion about that is it was egregious, and I hope that those mamas take that to the highest level of legality in court that they can, as much as possible. Like, you were in court in labor, which is insane to me. I had never seen anything like that. And so when those things happened, it's like, they're slowly upping the ante. We're in a post-Roe world right now. Post-Roe meaning when Roe was overturned, you don't have a federal right to an abortion at this point. These are all interconnected things that are going to start to happen, because they are literally coming after your rights.
Yeah.
By design. With the doula situation, I am a doula. I know so many doulas. That tends to happen a lot more common than what happened with the mama who was giving birth, essentially in court on Zoom. Doulas have been escorted out of, there is, like, us doulas talk to each other and we know, like, oh, that hospital is not, like, they're a not safe hospital. Like, we would encourage our clients not to go there because the relationship has been tense and their relationships with doulas have been tense. What we are trying to do, I lead the workforce development department in Black Mamas Matter Alliance, and a lot of that is about technical assistance, skill building, and training of our Black perinatal reproductive healthcare workforce. But one of the things that I am an advocate for our workforce is that systems and clinicians and birth workers and doulas have to talk to one another. They have to be in community with one another. They have to be in the same rooms with one another outside of these delivery rooms. They have to understand what each other's role is. And a lot of times you see that happen when a clinician doesn't understand the role of a doula. It is not to be your adversary. It is not to look for things to, like, tell on you about. Like, it literally is, my job is to advocate for my client, and my focus is on my client. And that advocacy looks like explaining technical jargon to them, explaining procedures, explaining what their options are, and also, to the best of my ability, trying to maintain that person's birth plan, if at all possible, because I don't know what your birth experiences were, but I know that, like, when you get into those situations, you may not always be able to advocate for yourself. And so I see that happening when clinicians and systems don't understand what doulas do and they feel threatened by them. So a lot of what we have to try to chop down is really having our systems, clinicians, physicians, nurses, labor and delivery nurses understand exactly the role of the doula, because it literally is, they are a part of your care team. So they should be welcomed in as part of the care team, and the care team, including the physicians and clinicians and whoever else is there, should be able to work together. That often does not happen. And so those are the situations that we really have to pay attention to. And we really have to be mindful of where we deliver. I know we don't always have the privilege of, picking the best locations, but if we can, understanding what we're up against and where we're delivering, check out those hospitals, look at their C-section rates, check out the OB-GYNs and see who's delivering your baby, figure out what they're about. Are they going to try to rush you into a C-section because they want to go on vacation? Like, all of these things are important for us to be mindful of when we birth in systems, which a lot of us still do and a lot of us still want to do. And there's nothing wrong with that.
I don't think either of us, our births were followed by the plan that we set. I was in the hospital for a month before I had my son with severe preeclampsia. Devin she had her second during the pandemic, and her first came out and was barely breathing. So I can imagine there are more moms out there who do not have a planned or successfully planned pregnancy. It's by the plan, by the book. This is what I want. I'm sure it's more moms who do not have that experience than do. So
absolutely,
it just shows how important it is to have women like yourself or people like yourself. I imagine there are male doulas. I'm assuming
there are, and we're getting a lot more. We're getting a lot more Black dad doulas and Black men doulas too. I've met a few, which there was none like years ago. But it's becoming a thing.
A Black male doula.
We're trying to get them on the pod. We're trying to get them on the pod.
Yes.
I can. I think I have two in mind that if I can slide y'all their information, there might be on your radar already. But that's always a great perspective.
Absolutely. So, Milan, when you think of just, the rates, we've talked about how there are high rates of Black women dying in childbirth. I mean, we've seen a lot of this over the years, and it doesn't seem like it's getting better. So from your perspective, why do you think so many Black women are experiencing death in childbirth?
Yeah. So that's such a hard question. Well, actually, it's not hard. I think how to solve it is a lot more complicated. But the reason that it's still happening is because we have not moved the needle enough in this country around our systems of care. And what I really want you all to understand is that these systems were not set up with us in mind. So when they were not built to center our needs. And they were not actually built as patient-centered. I'm not even talking about Black people-centered. Patient-centered. They are built as businesses. Most of the systems are built as businesses, and they're run as businesses first. And that's one of the reasons why this continues to happen, because we have not infused enough of the holistic care that needs to go into a new care system, meaning it's patient-centered, it's trauma-informed, it's culturally congruent, meaning you're going to have providers that look like you and understand your culture. We don't have enough of that. And then there is still racism that exists in this country. And the way that shows up in the medical industrial complex is that folks who are providing care are still operating under certain racist assumptions, whether they know it or not, because there's bias and then there's implicit bias, whether they know it or not, where they'll see a Black woman in pain because she is having severe contractions and she's in transition and she's near delivery, and they don't think that her pain is what she's saying it is. Because there is this notion that Black women and Black people experience pain different. There's this notion that we're also very dramatic. Is she really, is she really on it at a 10 with her pain? Or is she just looking for drugs? Like all of these things play into our experiences and our outcomes. And what it boils down to is we're not being listened to. And so I want to make this also very clear. Being Black and being a Black woman in this country is not the problem. The problem is with the system. So when we talk about the disparity and the things that are happening to us, our birth outcomes, the things that we are going through when we go in to deliver, and ultimately many times when we lose our life, it is not the fault of us. It is the fault of the system. I mentioned weathering before, so we have to also factor in that your health outcomes, preeclampsia, postclampsia, all of those things have been generationally built into our DNA because generation after generation we've experienced harm and trauma. That shows up in our bodies. And that's one of the things that we are contending with when we access care. So you put that on top of the care system that is not built for us, and then you have a recipe for disaster. And so that's why we're still continuing to see it. And I think a lot of times, especially with Black women, we do so much and we take on so much that we often don't stop to even care for ourselves. And we need to do a lot more of that too. So that also factors in. But caring for ourselves comes with, we have to be allowed to care for ourselves. Like, can I sit down? Can I take a day off or am I going to be fired? We have to, there's a lot that goes into that. And so I understand why we are where we are. And, it's really interesting because I think it's less safe to give birth now than it was like when our moms gave birth.
That's
so we're
wild.
Not going in that's wild, right? We're not going in the right direction, but, I have some hope, and I can talk about that too. And I have some I continue because I feel like, it's, we're going to get there, but we're going to get there not because they give it to us. and not because they want to give it to us. We're going to get there because we have these champions and these folks that I sit in strategy conversation and boots on the ground every day, and they're showing up for Black women, and it's going to happen.
So that leads me into my next question. Like, what are some actionable things we can do now to kind of change some of these outcomes? Like, where do we start? What do we do? How do we get the information out there? How do we advocate? How do we change laws? Like, how do we create change?
So change happens slowly, but it can happen. And I think what's interesting when I talk to elder reproductive justice and Black maternal health advocates and elder midwives, they have a sense of calm and it calms me down because they're like, baby, this ain't nothing new. It feels very scary, but they're like, cycles repeat themselves, and we're still here. And in so many ways, we're still thriving. So some of the actionable things that we can do is to stay in community and village with one another, help each other out, try to access care that is going to serve you. Try to make sure that you are never going to any doctor appointments alone. Have a support person that you trust and feel safe with. There are community-based organizations all over this country that are actively doing this work and showing up for families and Black birthing people. Get involved if you feel passionate about that. Reach out to them, volunteer, donate to organizations that are really fueling this movement, like Black Mamas Matter Alliance, and donating to organizations such as ours. It doesn't have to be ours, but donating to organizations such as ours, because we are an alliance across the nation, it has deep impact. And policy doesn't move until legislators feel like, oh, there's impact here. Like there's voices, there's strong voices for this cause. That's why we do advocacy days and we talk to legislators till we're blue in the face, because that is what resonates with them when they hear it over and over again. So we've been doing a lot of that. Champion for anyone in your life that is pregnant. Hey, do you have a doula? Let's try to connect you, because right now, it's a lot easier to get a doula than it was even 2 years ago and even 5 years ago, you know? And I would say anyone that is planning to give birth in this country, especially within a system, so meaning you're not going to give birth at home and you're not necessarily going to give birth at a holistic birth center, have a doula. Have a doula. And just understand that even having a doula, like there are certain things that may not shield you from some of the harm, but these are things that can help. And I feel like midwifery care, the thing that gives me a lot of hope and joy is midwifery care, and Black midwifery care that was almost eradicated is now back in full force. Black midwives, they deep, y'all. And it's like from the elder grand midwives all the way down to like the new young midwives that are coming in, and they are really ready and poised to provide that birthing care that our grandmothers used to get when they used to give birth in their homes, and the community midwife would come around and catch the baby and had no losses, no birth losses, no mama losses. Like we're getting back to that. So that gives me great hope.
Doulas and midwives is somewhat of a newer thing, right? And some people don't have access to having a doula or having a midwife. So, is there anything that you can tell those individuals that they can and should do to advocate for themselves if they need to?
Yes, absolutely. So I do want to say, doulas and midwives have been around for centuries, but they're having a resurgence now where it's like, it's kind of a newer concept for a lot of individuals. And that's normal. Like it wasn't on my radar when I had my son in 2012, you know? I will say that, especially for doulas, like you can doula and have a doula that's not even like like a certified doula. And let me explain that. Like a doula is a support person, and it's someone you feel safe with. It's someone who you feel like will have your back in the moment where you cannot have your own back. That could be mom for you. That could be best friend. That could be when I was having my son, it was my brother. Me and my brother are very close. And so I had tapped him like, hey, I need you to come to all of these appointments with me. I need you in the delivery room. Now, I had a very fast labor and he didn't make it. But I will say that find a person that you feel safe with. And it doesn't have to be people in your life that want that position, because I know sometimes mamas can be pushy and aunties and grandma, you know. Who do you feel safe with? Okay. Like, don't put anyone in your care space that is going to stress you out. So that is one way you can do, like, you can identify a cousin. Like, I know that come hell or high water, my cousin is going to ride for me.
Right.
Bring that person in, you know? Because one of the things that it makes me deeply sad, not that your question makes me sad, it makes me deeply sad to talk to birthing and pregnant people about how to advocate for themselves, because we shouldn't have to do that. Like, it makes me sad that has to be the conversation.
Right.
This is it should be a joyous time. It is one of the most vulnerable times. You should not have to be worried about advocating for yourself, especially going into a labor and delivery. But yet here we are. So this is a real conversation. So definitely have a support person, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a doula, just someone you trust and someone who knows you well enough to also know some of your cues, like that you don't have to necessarily verbalize, but know when you're off, something's wrong, something's not okay, something is okay. Yes, this is okay. You know, like someone who can understand your verbal and nonverbal cues.
Right.
And then I will say that I mentioned a lot. It's a privilege to be able to pick and choose who you deliver with or where you deliver, you know, especially in terms of insurance and, you know, what that looks like. So I will say that as much as possible that you can equip yourself with questions going in and get those questions asked, write them down, document everything. So if you don't understand what your care provider is telling you, ask questions. But also, if you feel like something is off, push hard, escalate. Every hospital has patient advocates. Escalate to a patient advocate. If you know something is off with your body and your care and you access care and they're like, no, just go home and you're not being heard, please don't go home. Stay there. Escalate. Like, I need to see someone else. Okay, well, bring me your patient advocate. Okay, well, bring me the manager. Like, just do not go home, especially when you know something is wrong, because those are some of the dangerous positions that our systems put us in. And a lot of times we will concede to not be that squeaky wheel, but be the squeaky wheel. Because your life can depend on it, and the life of your child can depend on it. So be the squeaky wheel and always escalate, document. One of the things I wanted to say is if there is something that your care provider is pushing on you and you're like, I'm not sure, I don't want this, you can have it known, like document that in my chart that I am refusing this or I don't want this and I want it in my medical chart. All of that can do wonders if God forbid something happens. Yeah.
Whew. Okay. So we talked about some heavy things and we knew this was going to be a heavy conversation, but at the end of the day, like, we always try to be positive. This conversation and this topic is near and dear to us because we actually know somebody who passed away after giving birth to her child. God. It's just like it hits home for almost all of us, you know? But what is something that's giving you hope? What is something that you feel good about? You have a little bit more insight than we do. So what is that thing?
The thing that gives me hope is that I show up every day, almost every day, and I see women and people that look just like the three of us who they have made it their life's mission to save Black mamas and babies. And I know midwives who have never lost a child or a mama. And what they are doing is they are infusing that training, that innate training back into our communities. As African American women, like there's often this notion that our culture has been lost. And every day I see elders bringing our African American traditions back into our care space. And I'm learning so much, what this means and how I can, I'm not even having any more babies. And I'm like, oh, I need to infuse some of this back into what I cook for my family. Cause all of it is connected to our ancestors and our heritage and what we've been through. So I have a lot of hope around our workforce and being and training up a next generation of perinatal healthcare workers, clinicians who look like us, who are going to go into systems and be those care providers. So I have a lot of hope about that. Black Mamas Matter Alliance was born in 2016 during a time of great turmoil because 2016, this regime also came to power and here we are back again. So that it gives me hope because in these really, really dark moments where things are really heavy, that is where great power rises up, right? Especially in our communities. And I see it happening again. So I want everybody else to feel encouraged about that. But I will say is that we're not waiting to be saved. They are not going to save us. We are doing the saving. Just like we need one other thing to do, but we are doing the saving. And we're not going anywhere. And so they are going to have to contend with us. We are at advocacy days. We are talking to legislators. We are not letting them off the hook. We are outing hospital systems that do harm. And that's one of the things, it's a business. So when you start outing their practices, they start to tighten up. There's a hospital in the Atlanta area that doesn't have a great reputation. And we have started to build a relationship with them, our organization, because they have not had a great reputation and they want better because of that. So if you're experiencing harm in care, make it be known, use your platforms, tell everybody, tag them on socials, be the squeaky wheel, put up all the Google reviews, let people know what's going on because it also will help the next person coming in hey, this might not be a safe space for me or this might be what I need to look out for. But I do have a lot of hope that we're starting to slowly but surely right set what is happening. It's not going to happen overnight, but we're strong in the fight and we're not letting go.
That's right.
You're right.
That's right.
You're right.
Thank you, Milan, for
Thank you both.
ending on a hopeful note. We know that this is an ongoing conversation, and it will continue to go on until we obviously see change. So thank you for standing on the front lines and advocating for our community. The Real Mama Pod is behind you and all of the soldiers that are standing alongside you. And now it is time for some mama juice because this conversation can get a little heavy and sometimes we need a good cocktail to sip on while we have the conversations. Now, I originally named this drink Mama's Bloom, because we are having a conversation around Black maternal health, and it's always the goal to make something grow and bloom out of this, something that we're hopeful for, something that we are happy to see, and that would be change. But you were saying the squeaky wheel, and I feel like
nothing wrong being a squeaky wheel
is a more appropriate name, because sometimes we got to make a little noise to see change. And I am renaming this drink the Squeaky Wheel. And
I love that.
Yeah, so that name is inspired by you, Milan, and just all the squeakiness that we need to have around this conversation. So we're going to be loud and squeaky with our drink.
Loud and squeaky.
Now, you mentioned that you like lemon drop martinis. So
that looks good.
So instead of vodka, I used gin. And I spritzed a little rose water on top, which is also how the Mama's Bloom came into play. But we are gonna just be the squeaky wheel, because I like that better given this conversation. And essentially what this drink has is 2 ounces of gin, 2 ounces of fresh lemon juice, a half an ounce of simple syrup, and a spritz of rose water on top. And it's called the Squeaky Wheel.
That's good.
I'm gonna make one.
You should.
I'm gonna add that rose water.
Remove the gin, or if you made it an actual martini with vodka, remove the vodka, and you will still have a squeaky wheel.
Mocktail or cocktail?
Yes.
Have it your way.
Yes.
Have it your way.
Yes.
I'll never
be afraid to be a squeaky wheel. Yeah, squeaky wheels is, if they're not gonna listen, we're gonna make them.
Right, exactly. So if this is your first time listening, we have another segment called Mama's Corner, and Mama's Corner is my favorite segment because that allows us to dig a little deeper with our guests. Either a listener will write in and ask a question, and we will ask that question to our guest, or we will dig a little deeper and I ask an additional question. And so since we were talking about squeaky wheels, I actually wanted to ask a question about that. When or why do you think women in particular, or Black women, are afraid to speak up and be that squeaky wheel? When did that change happen? And why do you think it's stigma around that?
You know what? I don't know if everyone's going to agree with me, but I will give you my opinion about that. I feel like a lot of times Black women, we don't want to be stigmatized about being the angry Black woman or the problem, especially in spaces that we don't feel safe in. So we will shrink ourselves and we'll be quiet to be more palatable. And how we arrive there, this is the part where I was like, folks might not agree, but I feel like our own community has had some hand in that. Meaning that when we as Black women don't feel supported by our own, and we are criticized by our own for being vocal, for expressing our needs, for pushing back when something is not right, for asserting ourselves and standing up for ourselves, it's not always welcome even within our community. So if we don't feel safe doing it amongst ourselves, we definitely not going to feel safe with others. And I feel like that is how we've gotten to that space of just like, just bottle it up, tighten it up. And a part of it also is like respectability politics, where we feel like we gotta be, they not gonna take me serious. And I actually really do like that there seems to be this like renaissance around, we don't give a damn no more. We gonna be what we are, because we are damned if we do, damned if we don't. They're still harming us any way we show up. And so I will encourage everyone to just be you, and you are enough. And I love when Black women are just like, not code switching and just kind of showing up the way they are. I'll be like, yes, this is family.
I think we'll see a lot more of that in the younger generation because we are the ones raising our kids now, and we're raising them to speak their minds. We weren't raised that way, so we want to see a change in that with our children. So I think we are encouraging them to use their voice, speak up for things that you don't agree with, ask questions because you should ask questions. So I'm excited to see what the future holds when it comes to the younger generation tackling topics like this in of course, a series of other things. So I'm sure we'll see a lot of change within our younger generations.
Yes, I love that. I think so too. We don't shrink our kids. We allow them to be free. We allow them to be kids. We allow them to say what they want to say. I mean, within parameters, right? But I think Kendra and I was having this conversation the other day because some of the things that our kids say would never fly with our parents ever.
Right?
Okay? I wouldn't have any teeth in my mouth. Okay? A dentist would not be able to fix the teeth that would be missing from my mouth if I said some of the things. But it's some joy in that freedom that they have, right? And so they're not afraid to speak. They don't have to undo all the trauma because it's just it's their norm. It's like, I said what I said and I said it and I'm gonna stand on that. I'm gonna stand 10 toes down. Whereas we're like second guess, like, oh my gosh, did I say that okay? Did I offend this person? And not that we're not teaching them to be empathetic, but it's like, it's okay to be yourself and you don't have to make yourself small for anyone. So I'm really excited to see what this next generation do
I am too.
with that. So shout out to all the mamas, the millennial mamas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Doing that.
Right? Breaking all those different, generational curses.
Yes, I know. We still got some work to do, but we doing the hard
we're parenting very different. And
sure.
it's not easy either.
It's not at all. Well, Milan, thank you so much for your time. This was a great conversation. We can't wait to have you back. The next time we have you back, though, it's going to be in person.
Yes.
Okay.
I would love that.
Especially since you're in Atlanta. But we really want to do something for this week. We've been talking about it for years. And it's like, no, it doesn't matter if it's virtual or in person. We're doing it. So, but next time we are going to do something a little bigger, a little better, and something a little bit more special. So I'm really excited about it.
I would love that. I would love to kiki with y'all in person. Thank you so much for having me. This was amazing. Yeah. I appreciate you all having me. I feel very honored. And it was just, y'all are dope. And, I hope your listeners know the real Mama Pod. Like, we got y'all. Don't worry.
Oh, thank you.
We got you.
Yeah.
You let us know.
Thank
Seriously.
you.
We have this platform for a reason. So you let us know how we can support and spread the word for whatever work you all are doing, especially in support of Black women and our health, and the health and safety of our children. Whatever you need, just let us know.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, until next time, mamas.
Bye.